of this deal hitting shares of Paramount, Skydance, and also the independent movie theater chains, including IMAX and AMC. But Roku getting a boost. And even with all of this stock movement, this deal still has a long way to go to get to the finish line. Let's get to Julia Boorstin for the industry reaction to the deal. And Julia, that Albanian army line from way back when, the Time Warner CEO, kind of taking a swipe at Netflix, just living rent-free in my head today.
Yeah, that was quite a long time ago, and now Netflix is such a streaming giant that it makes sense for it to acquire Warner Brothers, if you look at it from their point of view. Now, just looking at their argument about why Netflix believes that this deal should go through, they're saying they just have 8% of monthly viewing share if you consider viewing across both streaming and linear. YouTube in the #1 spot, then Disney, and they're saying even if they acquire these Warner Brothers assets with HBO, their share of total viewing will not be meaningful enough to raise concerns from regulators. Having said that, we're seeing a lot of concern today, John, from the Screen Actors Guild as well as from the WGA. The WGA calling for this deal to be blocked. The Screen Actors Guild just issuing a statement saying this transaction may serve the financial interests of shareholders, but it raises many serious questions about its impact on the future of the entertainment industry, especially the human creative talent whose livelihoods and careers depend on it. So, John, I think we're going to hear a lot of questions here about how to calculate the impact of this merger. There are some other calculations of the streaming heft of Netflix. Sensor Tower out with some data today showing that if you look just at mobile viewing and you look at the fact that Netflix is such a leader in terms of mobile viewing, they're going to actually have 56% in terms of monthly active users of the mobile app. Right now, Netflix, they say, has 46%. Amazon Prime Video has 17%. But that's just of mobile viewing, and I suspect that Netflix, and their confidence that this deal is going to go through, is expecting that the strength of YouTube and also the viewing on social media platforms like TikTok is going to enable them to say that they don't dominate. They're just one player in this ecosystem.
But do they become an Apple-type player now across not just streaming, but also theaters and TV? And I say that because Netflix now becomes an important player in theaters, assuming they don't drop those WBD assets. And part of what's come under fire from the industry a bit is these algorithmic decisions that are getting made on what flies or what doesn't based on the numbers in streaming. One can imagine that starting to influence what movies get greenlit, who gets to act in certain TV shows, even if it's not primarily for streaming.
Well, look, I think the data always comes into play, but there are a lot of different questions in there, John, and one of them is whether they become an Apple-like player. I actually think the question is whether they become an Amazon-like player, where they're selling Netflix and then allowing users to bundle in the HBO content, or are they going to include the HBO content in the Netflix subscription price and bump up the price of that? So the question then is, do they then add other channels? Are they going to allow consumers to subscribe to Netflix plus a series of channels, including HBO, which is what Amazon has in its channels business? So I think that's a key question to be determined for how Netflix approaches its new portfolio of offerings between Netflix, HBO, and then what other streaming services that it doesn't own, it decides to bundle in there as well. I think the question in terms of the theatrical business is an incredibly important one for the folks here in Hollywood. We saw Jane Fonda come out today saying she thinks this is a horrible thing for the movie industry and for the entertainment industry as a whole. And there's a lot of concern that Ted Sarandos is going to impose his approach, which is wanting short 2-week windows of films released in theaters exclusively before they're available on streaming on the Warner Brothers business. This is part of the negotiations here with Warner Brothers, and Netflix is committed to maintaining Warner Brothers' current deals with the movie theaters. The question is, how long do those deals last? Many of them, according to analysts, go through 2029, but some of them may be able to be renegotiated earlier. What I've heard from sources is that Netflix understands that Warner Brothers has a plan to maximize monetization of its films, both in theaters and then downstream, say on HBO and as on demand, with purchases on demand. The question is whether we see a pressure to shorten those theatrical windows which many argue would have negative implications not just for the theater chains, but also potentially for the other movie studios.
It's almost 25 years since AOL Time Warner, and here we are with Netflix. Julia, thank you.